You do a clap. Or do something.
Let's do it.
That was a poor clap, that was. Rose, she's not waving.
Hello everyone, welcome to Lockdown Live. I mean, we're not quite doing Lockdown Live, unfortunately. I'm joined here with the wonderful Trevor Pierce. How are you doing, Trev? You doing all right?
All right.
How's your summer going?
Good, busy.
Busy, yeah. Nice. Unfortunately, this is pre-recorded. We are not live today. This is all pre-recorded. But we thought we'd give you guys some content here during the summer. We haven't got Contagious happening. We haven't got anything happening, so we thought we'd give you guys something and a few things on the Instagram for you guys to check out as well. We hope you're all doing well. Trev, we're going to be looking at the book of Ephesians, is that right?
That is correct.
We're going to be trying to summarize the book of Ephesians in 10-minute quick interviews, which is going to be extremely difficult, but we'll find a way. Trev, our first few words on the first chapter of Ephesians are chosen, loved, and adopted. What is the big aim of Ephesians chapter 1?
The big aim of Ephesians chapter 1 is to help God's people have assurance and confidence in their salvation. So these three words, hopefully what we'll see, is that these three words center upon giving God's people the truth of God's eternal plan, and the truth of God's eternal plan gives his people confidence.
So those three words, so chosen, loved, and adopted, what do those three words reveal? Could you give us a bit more on that?
Yep, so let's start with chosen. Now, if you look throughout the Bible, take the Old Testament for example, every time God does something significant, although everything God does is significant, but every time he does something in his eternal plan, he always chooses someone. So you take Genesis 6, where God is going to judge the world. What does he do? He chooses Noah and his family so that through them, God's plan of salvation comes through. He chooses them to save the world. You have Abraham. God is going to start a nation which is as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. So what does he do? He chooses an individual and he gives him promises. And then when he wants to bless the nations, what does he do? He chooses a people. He chooses Israel. And through them, his eternal promise is going to come. Through them, his Christ is going to come. So God chooses individuals. He chooses a people so that he then gives them the law. He saves them from Egypt. He gives them the law. Why does he give them the law? Because they're his saved people that reflect his character. So therefore, the whole idea of God choosing individuals, choosing a people to reflect his brilliant and beautiful character should not be a shock to us. So the first word in chapter 1 is chosen. The key verse is really verse 1, chapter 1 verse 4. For he chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. Now, when you became a Christian, when I became a Christian when I was 12, on a camp. I could take you to the actual tent. I could show you exactly where I knelt down and asked Christ into my life. And when I became a Christian, it felt like it was all me. I was making a decision. It was me choosing. But the Bible teaches it's actually the other way around. It's a little bit like, I've got a 4-year-old granddaughter. Now, when we get to the road, her name is Amaya. I say, Amaya, take Granddad's hand. Now, she lifts her hand up, puts it in my hand, and holds my hand. Now, if you was to ask a 4-year-old who's taking the initiative, who is it who's holding whose hand? She would say, well, I'm holding Granddad's hand. I'm choosing to hold Granddad's hand. But in reality, I'm the one who's holding her hand. And that's the way it should be, because I'm wiser. I can see if there's a lorry coming down the road. I'm the wise one. I'm really holding her hand. She may think she's holding my hand, but in reality, I'm the one in control. And it's good that that's the case, because she's 4 and I'm 54. So it's good that that's the case. I'm the adult. I'm the one with the wisdom. When it comes to God, it's his initiative. And I'm so thankful that he's the one who chooses me, because if I chose him, if I'm holding hold of his hand, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to lose grip. Whereas he's got hold of me, you know it's sure.
It's a really helpful picture, guys. So one of the big themes in Ephesians that we're going to be exploring is being part of God's great family, something we all probably recognize and have heard before. Is there anything in Ephesians 1 that kind of kicks off that theme? We see a little bit of that. If you just dive into that, being part of God's family.
Well, if you read through Ephesians 1, it is primarily about the Father. It's the Father who chooses. And it's the Father who loves us. So if you look at chapter 1, verse 4, in love, he predestined us. Now, predestined is another kind of word for choosing. Now, what is his love based on? What is his choice to love us based on? Well, if you look at verse 7, you'll see it describes God's love, the riches of God's grace that he lavished on us with all wisdom and understanding. Now, just think about it. We are by nature rebels against God. We're going to see that next week. So if it's down to us to choose God, to love him, if we're by nature rebels, we'll never ever do that. So again, it's fantastic that God's love is not based on anything about me primarily. It comes from his character. He chooses to love me because he chooses to love me. It's his choice. It's not necessarily because I'm lovable. I'm made in his image, but I've used that privilege to actually rebel against him. And as a rebel, he chooses to love me. My love is up and down. So if it's about my initiative and me choosing to love God, then it's pretty frail. But if salvation is about God choosing to love me, then again it gives me huge assurance. And just how does God picture his love? He pictures his love as lavished love. Now, when I think of the word lavish, there's kind of two pictures that come to my mind. The first one is you go into Nando's. You like Nando's?
I love Nando's.
Okay, what drink do you order?
I go for a cheeky Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. And what's the great thing about the Coca-Cola?
It's sweet.
Yeah, but what about when you order it? It is, how often can you go back?
It's
bottomless. Refillable. It's bottomless. And you know, that's what God's love is like. It's like a Nando's Coke, okay? It just overflows. It's lavished. You can keep refilling it, okay? God's love is inexhaustible. It's a lavished love. Or it's a picture like you go to grandma's and, you know, I loved going to my gran because she'd spoil me. And then you'd have apple crumble and then the custard would come out. Now, a nan isn't going to just pour a little bit over. She's going to lavish it. And it's going to be all over. It's going to be coming out and pouring all over the crumble. That's what God's love is like. Okay, it's like a bottomless Coke, never ending. It's inexhaustible. It's lavish love. It's like the custard coming over your apple crumble. It's lavish love.
So we're mere mortal human beings, and God is this eternal power that has created us. Why has he chosen to love us?
Why? Because he is love, because his love is lavished. And he loves to save. If you read through the whole Old Testament, he's always telling his people to love the vulnerable, love the vulnerable, love the vulnerable. We are pretty vulnerable, as we're going to see next week, when we're rebels against him. So the last word is
adopted.
Adopted. So we have been loved. Well, first of all, we've been chosen, we've been loved, and then lastly, we've been adopted. Just look at the wonderful verse. In love, verse 5, he predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ in accordance with his pleasure and will. So he adopts us. Why does he adopt us? Because he loves us. Why does he adopt us? Because it gives him great joy. He adopts us according to his pleasure and will. So we have a Father who loves us, we have a Father who chooses, we have a Father who adopts us. Now, I've never adopted a child, but let's just imagine me and my wife ever do. We adopt a child. Let's imagine it's come from a foster home. And let's imagine that child is naughty once it becomes into our home. Now, if it's naughty, it may think because it's naughty, it's going to get sent back to the foster home. But if you adopt a child, it becomes second name's Pierce, it becomes a Pierce. And if it was naughty and disobedient, they may think they're going to be rejected and sent back to the foster home. But what do you say? You say, no, you're not now. I've chosen you. You've been adopted into my family. I've chosen to love you. You are now a Pierce. That's who you are. That's your identity. Our salvation is 100% God's initiative. He chooses us, he loves us, he adopts us. Therefore, it's secure. So Ephesians 1 is all about the plan of God to save his people. How does he do it? He chooses us before the creation of the world. He loves us with his lavish love. And thirdly, he adopts us into his family.
Wow. Chosen, love, and adopted. Take those 3 words away. We'll see you guys next time, hopefully in a few weeks' time. Do check out the Bible studies during the week. Maybe take some time to pray and process what Trev's been talking about. Maybe even right now as you switch off this video. But we hope to see you guys next time. So hope to see you then.